We live in a world obsessed with finding love. Swiping, searching, dreaming, longing. We chase the idea of a perfect relationship, hoping it will finally complete the aching space inside of us. But what if love isn't something you find at all? What if healthy, lasting love is something you become, and then naturally attract? Carl Jung, one of the deepest thinkers of the human psyche, didn't see love as just chemistry or compatibility. He saw it as a mirror, a sacred process through which we encounter not only another, but the most hidden parts of ourselves. If you've ever wondered why you keep attracting the wrong people, why patterns repeat despite your best intentions, or why real connection feels just out of reach, this video will offer you something deeper than advice. It will offer you insight. Jung taught that until we make the unconscious conscious, it will direct our lives, and we will call it fate. In love, this is especially true. We don't fall for someone randomly. We're drawn, sometimes magnetically, to people who match the unhealed places inside us. The stories we haven't rewritten, the parts of ourselves we still reject. But this isn't a tragedy. It's a doorway. Because through self-awareness, shadow, work, and individuation, the core of Jung's psychology, we can stop repeating and start transforming. We can learn to love from a place of wholeness instead of hunger. And in doing so, we stop searching for love that fills a void and begin attracting love that reflects our truth. So stay with me. This isn't about how to flirt better or how to play games to win someone's affection. This is about how to do the hardest thing of all, to meet yourself fully. And from that sacred place, create a love that lasts because it was never based on fear. It was built on truth. We all think we know what we want in love. We make lists, set standards, define our types. But love doesn't obey lists. It doesn't care about what your ego desires. Love is a mirror. And according to Carl Jung, you don't attract what you want. You attract what you are. Your unresolved wounds, your buried emotions, your hidden beliefs about yourself, all of it acts like a magnet. This is why someone who deeply fears abandonment might continually attract emotionally unavailable partners. It's not punishment. It's your psyche trying over and over to bring you face to face with what you haven't healed. It feels like fate. But it's actually the unconscious at work, trying to wake you up. Think about it. How often have you chased someone who didn't value you while ignoring someone who offered genuine care? That's not because you're broken. It's because your unconscious mind is seeking what feels familiar, not what feels good. Jung believed that our lives are shaped by deep patterns within us, many of which we inherited or absorbed before we could even think critically. In love, those patterns become active. Attraction isn't just about looks or charisma. It's your inner world trying to complete itself through another person, even if that process is painful, especially when it is. Until you face this truth, love becomes confusing. You might tell yourself, I want someone kind, yet feel bored around kindness and drawn to drama. That's the unconscious pulling you toward unresolved stories that need to be rewritten from the inside out. The work isn't about blaming yourself or judging your patterns. It's about getting radically honest about who you are, being in relationships. Are you loving from fear or wholeness? Are you seeking rescue or resonance? As Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. The good news is this. The moment you begin to change from within, your outer world shifts too. The quality of people you attract changes when you stop needing them to save you, when you meet your own needs, when you hold your own wounds with compassion. You stop magnetizing love that hurts. You stop being drawn to people who reflect your pain and begin to draw in those who reflect your peace. This isn't magic. It's psychological alignment, and it's the foundation of attracting not just love, but healthy, lasting love. You become the kind of person who no longer needs to chase love, because love naturally flows toward who you've become. When we fall in love, we rarely see the other person as they truly are. We see them through the filter of our unconscious, a screen of memories, unmet needs, and childhood impressions. Carl Jung called this process projection, and it's one of the most powerful forces in our psychological lives. Projection is when we take a part of ourselves, often something we've repressed, rejected, or longed for, and we see it in someone else. But we don't just see it. We believe they are the source of it. That's why love can feel magical, even obsessive. It's not just that we're connecting with another person. It's that we're unconsciously meeting a piece of ourselves we've been disconnected from, wrapped in the face of another. This is why love can feel like déjà vu, like you've known someone forever. Often it's because they embody something deeply familiar, even if it's painful. If you grew up feeling unseen, you might fall for someone who withholds affection, because something in you believes that if you can finally get them to love you, it will heal what your parents couldn't. This isn't love. It's an emotional reenactment. Jung warned us that what we don't make conscious will show up in our lives as fate. So we chase unavailable people, confusing emotional chaos with chemistry. We mistake longing for depth. We confuse intensity with intimacy. But in truth, we're not falling in love. We're falling into our old wounds. Projection isn't always negative. Sometimes we project our highest potential onto someone else. We might see their strength, their creativity, their confidence. But in doing so, we believe they have it and we don't. This creates imbalance, idolization, and even emotional dependency. The truth is, what we admire in others is often dormant within ourselves. Jung believed that relationships are one of the fastest paths to self-awareness, precisely because of this mirroring effect. The more we become conscious of our projections, the more clearly we can see the person in front of us, not as a fantasy, but as a real human being with flaws, needs, and complexity. To attract healthy love, we must reclaim our projections. That means owning what we've disowned. It means asking, what am I seeing in them that I'm not willing to see in me? When you take back your projections, you stop idealizing others and start integrating yourself. You stop trying to heal old wounds through new people. This is where real love begins, not from fantasy, but from presence, not from needing someone to complete you, but from recognizing that love is not about possession or perfection. It's about truth. And the moment you begin loving with open eyes, not through the fog of projection, is the moment you begin to love for real. Love often brings out the best in us, our tenderness, our hope, our willingness to risk. But it also evokes something deeper, darker, and more unconscious: the shadow. In Jungian psychology, the shadow represents the parts of ourselves we repress, deny, or disown. The emotions we've learned are unacceptable, the instincts we were taught to suppress. When it comes to relationships, the shadow doesn't disappear. It simply waits. It shows up in the arguments you can't stop having, in the jealousy you can't explain, in the quiet resentment that grows when your needs aren't voiced. If you don't confront your shadow, you will act it out, not in isolation, but with the person you claim to love most. Many people wonder why their relationships follow the same destructive patterns, even when the partner changes. One relationship may begin in romance and end in control. Another may start with affection and end in emotional distance. This is not random. It's repetition, a signal from the psyche that something unresolved is trying to surface. The shadow side of your romantic patterns isn't just dysfunction. It's a map, a mirror. It reveals what's still unloved within you. Maybe you're drawn to emotionally unavailable people because your own vulnerability terrifies you. Maybe you sabotage intimacy because your inner child learned that closeness meant danger. These are not flaws. They are defense mechanisms. They are the shadow's attempt to protect you, even as they slowly destroy the very connection you long for. The irony is that most of us look outward to fix what is fundamentally inward. We believe the right partner will finally make things different. But until we meet our own shadow, we keep dragging it into the arms of someone else. Jung wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." In love, this means noticing your defensiveness instead of justifying it. It means feeling your insecurity instead of projecting. It always means seeing the fear beneath the anger. When you do this, love becomes not just a comfort but a crucible, a place where your hidden wounds are burned into wisdom. Healing your romantic patterns is not about blaming the past. It's about choosing consciousness now. The moment you recognize a shadow pattern, whether it's control, fear of abandonment, emotional avoidance, or people-pleasing, is the moment you can begin to relate from awareness instead of reaction. Love doesn't require perfection, but it does demand honesty. And when you bring your shadow into the light, something beautiful happens. Your relationships shift from reenactments of pain to opportunities for healing. You stop choosing love that confirms your worst fears and start creating love that reflects your wholeness. We often enter love looking for connection, but unconsciously, we may be looking for something else: completion, redemption, or even resolution of childhood wounds. Jung referred to this powerful pull as the parent complex. It's the invisible blueprint that causes you to fall for someone who reminds you, in tone, in absence, in approval, of your mother or father. This isn't random. It's the psyche's attempt to heal through repetition. But healing through unconscious repetition rarely works. What often happens instead is reenactment. You don't choose who your heart opens to. Your unconscious does, and it chooses what it recognizes. In that recognition is both the seduction and the trap. Think of the relationships where you felt most consumed, not by love, but by longing. The kind where you felt invisible, where love had to be earned, or where you walked on eggshells to keep the other person close. These aren't coincidences, they're echoes. If you had a parent whose love was inconsistent, conditional, or emotionally unavailable, your psyche may search for that same dynamic in adulthood, hoping that this time the outcome will be different, but it rarely is. The child in you keeps hoping that if you can just love them right, they won't leave, that if you can be enough, they'll stay. The heartbreak isn't just about the person, it's about the ancient ache that got stirred up all over again. This is where awareness changes everything. The moment you see that you're not just loving, you're repeating, is the moment you get your power back. The parent complex loses its grip, not when you find the right person, but when you stop using love as a way to fix the past. Jung believed that the way forward is not through suppression but integration. That means facing the unmet needs of the child within you, not expecting a partner to meet them for you. It means learning to say, "That hurt me," instead of numbing it. It means seeing your partner not as your savior or your parent, but as a human being, flawed, separate, and not responsible for your old wounds. You don't escape the parent complex by running from relationships. You transform it by relating from a new place. When you stop expecting your partner to do what your parents couldn't, you begin to love from the present, not from the past. You stop trying to rewrite your childhood and start writing your adulthood. The difference is massive. Love becomes less about being rescued and more about being real. And in that realness, in that honesty, vulnerability, and mutual responsibility, is where genuine, lasting love begins. Not because it completes you, but because it meets you, exactly as you are, finally awake. Love yourself first. We've all heard it, haven't we? It's become one of the most repeated slogans in modern self-help culture. But when Carl Jung spoke of self-love, he wasn't referring to spa days or positive affirmations. He meant something far more radical: the willingness to confront your inner world, to meet the parts of yourself you've banished, and to bring light into the forgotten corners of your soul. Real self-love isn't about boosting your ego. It's about integrating your shadow. It's not about thinking you're perfect. It's about accepting that you are not, and still choosing to show up for yourself with compassion instead of condemnation. Without this foundation, any relationship you enter will be an attempt to fill a void no one else can touch. You can't expect someone else to treat you better than you treat yourself. We often look to our partners to validate us, to give us a sense of worth we never developed on our own. But this is where the trouble begins. When you don't love yourself, love from others feels either suspicious or insufficient. You question it, sabotage it, or cling to it out of fear. And underneath it all, there's a silent belief. If they really knew me, they'd leave. Jung understood that true love can only grow in the soil of authenticity. And authenticity begins when you stop abandoning yourself. When you look in the mirror, emotionally and psychologically, and stop running from what you see. Real self-love is brutal in its honesty and tender in its commitment. It's recognizing your wounds without using them as excuses. It's forgiving yourself for who you had to be to survive, and deciding who you want to become now. It's learning to stay with your own feelings, even when they're painful, instead of outsourcing your emotional needs to someone else. This kind of love builds emotional integrity, the capacity to say no when something dishonors you, to walk away from relationships that feed your insecurities, and to wait for a connection that mirrors your growth, not your wounds. You stop chasing love and start embodying it, and in doing so you change the kind of energy you bring into every room and every relationship. When you cultivate this level of self-respect, the quality of your love changes. You're no longer interested in being chosen. You're interested in choosing, in discerning, in building something that aligns with your inner truth. You no longer need someone to complete you. You want someone to walk with you. That difference shifts everything. Jung knew that the most profound transformation begins inside. Self-love in its deepest form is the root system from which all healthy relationships grow. Without it, we seek in others what only we can give ourselves. With it, we become whole enough to meet another whole, not to merge, not to save, but to co-create something sacred and real. Carl Jung famously said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." But transformation in love doesn't happen through fusion. It happens through the sacred meeting of two individuals who are whole on their own. Wholeness is not perfection. It means that you've faced your shadow, integrated your wounds, and stopped outsourcing your emotional survival. Without this inner work, relationships become rescue missions, you seeking in another what you refuse to face within yourself. When we enter a relationship half-formed, hoping the other person will fill the gaps, we invite imbalance, control, and fear-based attachment. That's not love. That's dependency dressed up in romance. So many people try to bypass the inner work by finding the right person. But no partner can complete the unfinished business of your psyche. Jung understood that union with another can only be healing when it comes after, not instead of, individuation. The journey of becoming who you truly are. When you haven't walked this path, love becomes distorted. You fall in love with potential. You confuse chemistry with compatibility. You feel devastated when the other person doesn't meet the unspoken expectations you were never able to fulfill for yourself. Wholeness allows you to see clearly. It liberates you from projecting your unmet needs onto someone else and blaming them when they can't carry the weight of your unacknowledged self. To become whole is to become accountable. You own your pain without making someone else responsible for fixing it. You stop blaming your past for your present choices. You stop needing your partner to play therapist, parent, or savior. You start taking yourself seriously, your dreams, your wounds, your voice, and you stop abandoning them in exchange for connection. Ironically, it's only when you're willing to walk alone that you finally become ready to walk beside someone. Wholeness doesn't mean you no longer desire love. It means you no longer sacrifice your truth to get it. You recognize that love is not a cure for your emptiness, but a mirror of your inner fullness. When two whole people meet, something entirely different emerges. Not codependency, but co-creation. There is space for both truths, both shadows, both paths. Love no longer feels like a battlefield or a proving ground. It feels like a homecoming, but you can't arrive there unless you've first returned home to yourself. Wholeness before union isn't a luxury. It's a necessity, because without it, Even the most passionate connection will crack under the pressure of unmet needs and unconscious projections. But with it, love becomes what it was always meant to be. Not a way to escape yourself, but a space where two souls can grow, together and apart, with freedom, depth, and truth. Emotional maturity is not about being flawless or always calm. It's about being conscious. When you've done the inner work, you respond instead of react. You communicate instead of withdraw or attack. And most importantly, you take responsibility for your emotions without projecting them onto others. Jung believed that emotional growth is the foundation for individuation, the lifelong journey of becoming your true self. In relationships, emotional maturity creates an energetic safety net. It tells your partner, "You are free to be fully yourself here. I won't punish you for your truth. I won't collapse under your vulnerability. And I won't make you responsible for soothing the wounds I haven't healed." But this kind of safety can only come from someone who has faced their own emotional storms. Someone who has held their pain, sat with it, and emerged from it, not someone who has run from it or denied its existence. When we haven't done that, we seek relationships to regulate our emotions, to numb what we haven't named. We mistake intensity for intimacy, drama for desire. But intensity without safety is trauma reenactment. Love that isn't grounded in emotional maturity will always feel unstable, because one or both partners are waiting for the other to fix what only they can face. This is why relationships often fall apart, not from lack of love, but from lack of readiness. Emotionally mature people create safe relational fields, not through perfection but through presence. They listen without trying to fix. They own their triggers. They can say, "I'm hurt," without blaming. They can hear, "I need space," without panicking. This kind of love is deeply transformative because it doesn't try to change the other person. It creates the conditions where change happens naturally, through mutual trust and openness. Jungian psychology teaches us that healing happens in relationship, but only when the relationship reflects back not just our ideal self but also our shadow, and holds us with compassion through both. Emotional maturity is magnetic. It doesn't chase or cling. It stands in its own center and says, "I will meet you in truth, not performance." And that changes everything. It dissolves games, ends manipulation, and invites honesty. When both people operate from this place, love becomes an alchemical container, not to complete each other but to awaken the deeper layers of the soul. Emotional safety isn't built through grand gestures or constant reassurance. It's built through emotional integrity, the quiet, consistent commitment to show up with honesty, empathy, and presence. And once you've experienced that kind of safety, you'll never again mistake chaos for love. Relationships don't just happen to us, and they happen through us. Carl Jung believed that all relationships are mirrors of the unconscious. The people we attract, fall in love with, clash against, or feel drawn to are rarely random. They are reflections of the parts of ourselves we are either seeking, denying, or avoiding. In this way, love becomes a diagnostic tool of the psyche. Every romantic attraction is an invitation to look within. What part of me is being revealed through this person? And the truth is often unsettling. We're not just seeing the other, we're seeing our unmet needs, our hidden fears, our unresolved stories, and our deepest longings projected onto their face. This mirroring can be uncomfortable because it strips away the illusion that relationships will save us. When we look closely, we realize that the emotional chaos we experience with another person is often the chaos we carry within ourselves. If we're anxious in love, it's usually because our own sense of worth is still conditional. If we're controlling, it's likely because we don't trust life or ourselves. Jung taught that what we don't make conscious, we project. And nowhere is this truer than in love. We think we're reacting to our partner's flaws, but often we're responding to our own wounds, made visible through them. Love then becomes a psychological classroom, and every fight or trigger is a lesson plan we didn't know we needed. Yet this reflective nature of love isn't meant to shame us. It's meant to liberate us. When you recognize that the relationship is mirroring your inner state, You stop blaming the other and begin healing the self. If your partner is emotionally unavailable, ask, where am I unavailable to myself? If they don't listen, ask, do I truly listen to my inner voice? This doesn't excuse toxic behavior. It simply empowers you to see your role in the emotional dynamic. Jung didn't advocate passivity. He encouraged consciousness, to step out of the victim story and into the story of self-awareness. Because only when you reclaim your projections can you relate to someone as they truly are, not as a screen for your past pain. The highest form of love isn't perfect compatibility. It's conscious reflection. It's the ability to say, being with you teaches me more about who I am. That kind of love evolves both people. It doesn't bypass pain, but it gives the pain purpose. When both partners are willing to own what's being mirrored, the relationship becomes a sacred container for individuation. Together, they grow into deeper versions of themselves. And when that mirroring becomes conscious, love stops being a battlefield and becomes a mirror of truth, one that reflects both your light and your shadow, not to punish you, but to reunite you with who you really are. At the heart of many dysfunctional romantic patterns lies a wounded child, not metaphorically but psychologically. Carl Jung saw the divine child as a vital archetype, a symbol of potential, vulnerability, and authenticity. But when this inner child is wounded, neglected, shamed, criticized, or abandoned, it begins to shape how we seek love in adulthood. We don't look for partners. We look for parents. We look for someone to finally give us what we never received. But the tragedy is this. When we chase healing through another, we often recreate the very pain we're trying to escape. Unconsciously, we become children in adult bodies, hoping someone will finally love us enough to make the hurt go away. This is why relationships can feel so emotionally volatile. The intensity isn't always about the other person. It's the cry of the inner child finally being triggered. When your partner pulls away, it's not just distance, it's abandonment echoing from your past. When they criticize you, it's not just feedback. It's the old wound of shame reactivated. And yet, we rarely realize that we are expecting adult love to fix childhood pain. Jung would say this is the work of the unconscious, repeating old stories until they are made conscious. Without awareness, our inner child runs the show. It chooses who we fall for, how we behave, and what we tolerate. Healing, then, begins not with finding the right person, but with reparenting the child within. Reparenting means giving yourself now what you were denied then. It's about listening to your fear without shame, comforting your sadness without judgment, and allowing your joy without suppression. When you begin to meet your own emotional needs for safety, validation, compassion, and belonging, you stop demanding that your partner become the parent you never had. You begin to relate as a whole adult rather than as a wounded child. And something miraculous happens. Love becomes freer. It no longer needs to heal your past so it can finally exist in the present. The pressure lifts. The drama softens. The emotional hunger turns into emotional intimacy. You can now choose someone not to fix you but to walk beside you. Jung taught that healing brings us back to our original wholeness, the self. The inner child is not an obstacle to love. It is the very heart of it. When that child is embraced, rather than exiled, you become capable of real connection, not because you've found the perfect partner, but because you've created inner safety. And in that inner safety, love thrives. Not desperate love, not performative love, but true, secure, reciprocal love. When the child within feels safe, the adult can love freely. This is how healing the inner child doesn't just change your past, it transforms your future, because only a healed heart can choose healthy love, and only a conscious soul can sustain it. True love, in the deepest Jungian sense, is more than passion or companionship. It is a rare alchemy where two souls consciously meet and transform. Jung believed that love's highest expression is the union not just of bodies or minds, but of whole selves. This union requires profound self-awareness, the courage to face one's shadow, and the willingness to embrace vulnerability without armor. Conscious love is not about losing yourself in the other, but about finding your true self reflected and honored in another. It's an ongoing dance where both partners grow individually and together, forging a connection that transcends the fleeting and the superficial. At its core, this kind of love demands emotional maturity. It asks us to resist the unconscious, patterns that bind us to old wounds and repetitive dramas. Instead, it calls for presence, being fully awake to your own feelings, needs, and triggers while holding space for your partners. This balance of individuality and intimacy creates a sacred container where healing and growth flourish. Here, love becomes a mirror revealing not just beauty, but the shadows that need integration. The conscious lovers do not run from conflict. They engage with it, knowing that through tension and challenge, transformation is born. This alchemical process also involves what Jung described as the transcendent function, a movement beyond binary opposites like good and bad, self and other, love and fear. When souls truly meet, they enter a liminal space where paradoxes coexist and new meaning emerges. This space allows the couple to create something wholly unique, a shared reality built on trust, respect, and a commitment to mutual wholeness. It's here that love becomes a spiritual path, a journey toward individuation where each partner supports the other's fullest potential. The relationship stops being a battlefield and becomes a sanctuary. Ultimately, conscious love is both a gift and a responsibility. It asks us to do the inner work necessary to break free from unconscious cycles and step into authentic connection. It challenges us to become whole first, so we can give and receive love without losing ourselves. When this happens, love is no longer a need to be fulfilled but a creative force that nurtures, inspires, and transforms. Jung's vision of love reminds us that the greatest relationships are those where two souls meet in full awareness, courage, and openness, where love is not just felt but deeply lived. This alchemy changes everything forever. Love is never simple or easy. It is the mirror in which we confront ourselves with all our beauty and brokenness. Carl Jung showed us that healthy, lasting love is not about finding someone to complete us, but about two whole beings choosing to walk life's path together with open hearts and clear eyes. When we stop chasing illusions and start healing our inner wounds, we open the door to relationships that nurture rather than deplete us. This journey requires patience, courage, and deep self-reflection, but the reward is nothing less than the transformation of our very soul. The patterns that once trapped us begin to dissolve as we face our shadows and embrace our wholeness. Each relationship becomes a sacred laboratory for growth, where pain and joy intermingle to forge something new and alive. We learn to love not out of need or fear, but out of authentic connection and respect, a love that sustains through challenges and celebrates in moments of grace. Jung's insights remind us that love is a profound psychological and spiritual process, a dance of individuation where two souls consciously evolve together. This path of conscious love asks us to be brave, to risk vulnerability, to look honestly at our fears, and to nurture the parts of ourselves we once ignored. It asks us to be present and compassionate, both with ourselves and our partners. In doing so, we create relationships that are not just enduring, but deeply enriching. The alchemy of love changes everything because it transforms us from the inside out, healing old wounds and awakening the joy and creativity that come from truly being known and accepted. In the end, healthy, lasting love is less about finding the right person and more about becoming the right person, whole, aware, and ready to give and receive love on a profoundly conscious level. It's a lifelong journey, one that calls us to continually evolve, heal, and open our hearts. But when we commit to this journey, we find a love that not only lasts but changes everything forever.